Let's talk about Ed Gein. I don't know if did y'all see Ed Gein over the weekend? Here's the thing. I've seen the entire series except the last two episodes. Last night when I got home from working this show, um, I was like, let me pop on at least two episodes because I watched like the first four. I was like, I want to do half. So Sunday, when did I go? Wait, Saturday. I watched the first four episodes. First, I was watching a lot of stuff. I actually got around to watching Bring Her Back. That movie freaked me out. Like I want to talk about squeamish and stuff and stuff. I know look, I was more squeamish watching Bring Her Back than I was watching uh Monster, the Ed Gein story. Even though I was thoroughly entertained by the Ed Gein thing. But of course, when you watch something that has to do with Ed Gein, y'all should know that you have to take a lot of what you see with that with a grain of salt because you already know when it comes to Ryan Murphy and a lot of stuff that he does, even when he's incorporated real life serial killers like Richard Ramirez and in American Horror Story 1984, when he's encouraged, I mean, he's interlinked them in a lot of his stories. It's so like, you already know how to feel when it comes to that type of thing. So same thing with this, because after I watched the episodes, I was like, okay, so what part is real and what part is been sensationalized for the movie? Because I was like, right after I'm gonna watch the documentaries and all that stuff, and I do think that they have Ed Gein documentaries on one of the streaming services. I have to check. It might be Peacock or HBO Max, one of them, but I have to look it up. But so yeah, so after all of that. Basically, I don't know if you saw the series. Charlie Hunnam plays Ed Gein. He was, born in La Crosse, Wisconsin in 1906. He was the son of an alcoholic named George and a religious zealot named Augusta, who y'all know was played by Lori Metcalf. She definitely turned it out as the crazy kooky mother. I was like, look, she ain't been in I feel like the last time we seen her as a nutbag for a mother was when she played Mrs. Loomis in Scream 2. But she definitely was bringing a lot of that isms in this film. And then at one point had like a stroke and those other stuff. So the family moved to a farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin. And Ed had a brother named Henry, who I had no idea until I watched the movie that he had a brother. So yeah, they were deeply religious from their mother. Their mother hardly let them leave the house besides going to and from school. She read them the Bible, told them to fear the outside world as a sinful and dangerous place. Tell them, yeah, don't get a woman because women are whores and Jezebels and all this other stuff. She did mention all that in there. And we've heard many of women who always say, like, when it comes to when they talk about that, don't get with them whores and all that stuff. Like, there's a lot of them that get their kids so deeply indoctrinated in that crazy religion, using religion as a weapon or as a fear tactic to freak out their kids, which would make a whole lot of sense as to why Ed Gein was all fucked up, probably because of his damn mother. Now, they also said that George died in 1940, leaving Ed and Henry as the family's breadwinners. Both started working jobs off the farm, and Henry eventually married a woman in from town, which was kind of confusing because then he said that he was going to marry the lady in the show, and then they made it, and then they implied that Ed may have killed his own brother, but that's never been proven. That's kind of been speculation. But his brother did die in a brush fire. They said that happened years later. The way they made it look in the show is that he killed his brother, started a brush fire, and made it seem like the brush fire got out of control. The brother died from asphyxiation from the smoke, and that was the whole situation. Because when they did the autopsy, heart failure was determined as the cause of death, and but his body wasn't burned or injured, which they did think that Ed may have something to do with it. But so then it says, after Henry's death, Augustus suffered two paralyzing strokes, which intensified the isolation and the fact that Ed and her had to be codependent on each other. He basically was washing his mother, taking care of her. She passed away in 1945. Then he boarded up his mother's rooms in the farmhouse. He basically kept them pristine as he began living in squalor. He basically took odd jobs around Plainfield, even babysitting local kids. So when you see that in the movie, he was babysitting the children. But then again, they said he killed the girl with polio, played by Addison Rae, in the show. And then he got caught up in these pulp magazines and violent stories about Nazis and cannibals, especially the woman Ilse Koch, who was a Nazi wife, who basically, I guess he got the idea of making lampshades and furniture out of Holocaust victims' skins. So he was doing it. He was grave robbing and basically skinning a lot of his victims, even the people he allegedly killed, and would basically turn themselves into furniture. Particularly how I think about, because I was like, how did he get caught? And I did watch into the episode of when he actually got caught, and it was the fact that he went and killed that hardware store owner, Bernice Warden. And after he made a purchase, she disappeared. And remember, there was another situation where it was like he killed the bartender, and he was kind of it was implied that he did it, but they couldn't prove it. So they kind of let that go. But then the messed up part, and then they said that which I don't know if that was true or not, that her son was part of law enforcement. And so then they shared his they searched his property. They found Bernice's body, basically skinned and decapitated, hanging in his barn. And then in the house, they found her severed head, heart preserved in bags. Around the property, they discovered additional bones, body parts, and human skins fastened into mass furniture and other trinkets. So, oh yeah, so they were talking about Mary Hogan. That was a tavern owner who had gone missing in 1954. That was who he admitted that he had shot. So yeah, so there was a part of that story too. So he admitted to that, and that was in the thing as well. So now, with all of that being said, because I want to put that out there, now there was some story that came around where a lot of excuse me, what do you call it? A lot of people who follow true crime, a lot of those true crime fans, they basically are slamming the movie or the show for its inaccuracies. So let's get into that. So his latest flick has been criticized by viewers for its creative liberties, with many frustrated by its fake storylines. The latest in the anthology series arrives on a platform on October 3rd and focuses on the convicted murderer, grave robber, and suspected serial killer. Starring Charlie Hunnam in the titular role, the 8 episodes explores Gein's heinous crimes. However, annoyed viewers have blasted Murphy for embellishing some of the facts in the case. Well, the fact of the matter was, here's the thing. Do we necessarily blame Ryan Murphy? Because he didn't write it. I believe Ian Brennan wrote all the episodes, even though they co-produce and everything. And they're behind, and Ryan Murphy is producing. So I guess he does have a hand in blame because Ryan Murphy is the bigger name. He produced it. He didn't write any of the scripts, which thank God, because I will say this, even though a lot of it was heavily embellished, I was thoroughly entertained. I even love the juxtaposition of some of the scenes of like Psycho in some of the sequences. And even, the scene where you see Ed with the woman's skin, the mask that he made on his face, and then he's naked, he tucks his dick between his legs like Buffalo Bill in the Silence of the Lambs. That they even before those inspirational sequences came up, I knew what they was about. Even like the scene of where you see Addison Ray and then he makes his mother try to hit upside the head with that, what was it, the hammer or whatever. I was like, that's uh Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like I knew that's where they got that from. Although they were trying to say that was made up, that Ed Gein used a chainsaw to kill his victims. They said that didn't happen, and I do believe that that was a Toby Hooper idea. But they try to juxtapose all of that in the sequence and making it seem like. And so I guess maybe that was like for visual effect, where they wanted him like swinging the chainsaw around while he's out in the open, and there's a scene of Leatherface doing that at the end of the original film. So I think they were just trying to juxtapose a lot of those sequences to kind of say like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho, and Silence of the Lambs were inspired by Ed Gein. Not necessarily saying that they're completely accurate, but they're saying that they were inspired by those movies. But when it came down to it, they added their own little sauce on being inspired by that story. So they said one aspect of the show that has irritated fans is the introduction of Gein's supposed girlfriend, Adeline Watkins, played by Susanna Son. Yeah, because when I was watching those scenes, I'm like, I couldn't tell if it was in his head or if it was something that was actually happening. So I was thoroughly confused while I was watching that sequence. Like I didn't know if that was, something that was in his head or not. Another backlash that stemmed from the depiction of Gein using a chainsaw to kill his victims. Now, Gein confessed to killing hardware store owner Bernice Warden and tavern owner Mary Hogan, both of whom were killed with a firearm. In Murphy's series, however, Gein kills him using a chainsaw. Like, what? No. I was like, wait a minute. When he killed Bernice, he shot her in the head. When he killed, well, the back of the head, it went through the eye, because I remember that. And then when he killed Mary Hogan, he shot her as well. He didn't use a chainsaw. He used a chainsaw when he was chasing those men that came up in the barn. That was the sequence. Daily Mail, did y'all actually watch the show? And they said like Leatherface does in the 1974 film Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was loosely based on his crimes. I think y'all messed that up. Additionally, Gein is portrayed as to having killed his older brother, Henry Edward Gein. Henry was found dead at 43, with the coroner listing the cause as asphyxiation. While many have speculated that Gein was responsible for his death, the theory was never proven. On the show, he also killed babysitter Evelyn Hartley, whom he abducts, tortures, and kills in retaliation for her taking his babysitting job. Well, first of all, them kids didn't even like you. While Hartley did go missing in 1954, she was not abducted or killed by Gein. At the end of Monster, the Ed Gein story, he is seen assisting the FBI in helping to catch Ted Bundy, but this did not happen in reality. Gein was arrested in 1957, almost 2 decades before Bundy committed his murders. Viewers have vented their annoyance at Murphy's embellishments on social media. Taking to Reddit, one complained, "Now here's the thing. I can forgive all this if it's related at the end that it is all fantasy and myth. This series could have saved itself by being an examination on how myths become widely believed." They continue, "Someone who watches the series to completion and takes it as face value will come out thinking that Ed killed people with a chainsaw. He is the confirmed killer of Evelyn Hartley. Adeline Atkins knew he what? Wait, what? Knew knew he what he was doing. Okay, they typos. Adeline Atkins knew what he was doing and was fascinated by it. That Ed had a fling with his second victim, and hell, that he was the reason Ted Bundy got caught. It's dog-ish, but I doubt I'll be able to keep anyone from watching." Another wrote, "I knew he, Murphy, embellished some things in Dahmer and the Menendez brothers, which for Dahmer was for sure making it seem like one of the victims was dating him, but there was still a lot of truth to what the series depicted. However, the Ed Gein story is just so far from what happened. Making Adeline an accomplice, being involved with one of the victims, killing the babysitter because she stole the job, and the fact that so much of the show was about Adeline being an accomplice too is just asinine. I never expected this to be fully based on facts, but to have this much creative liberty is going to have people thinking it's all true. Super frustrating. They didn't have to do all that. It still would have been a great series." A third slammed, "Ryan Murphy doesn't care about facts or any victims of his series. He sensationalizes, romanticizes, and glamorizes real life killers and make them hot." And what I don't, and they said his ideas are good for maybe 2.5 seconds. Then he has to take someone else's story and make it his own. Got to make that green somehow. You want to know something that's kind of like my bitch that I've been saying about Ryan Murphy for the longest. And another thing I was saying like this is as well as like these are real life people that you're writing about. So when you're sensationalizing stories that have no weight, merit, or fact, doesn't that affect the family in some sort of way? Like I would have been suing. Wait, wasn't there a bunch of people that sued him over the Jeffrey Dahmer thing? I wonder what happened with those cases. Did they go through? Were they dismissed? Did he pay them off? Like I don't remember if there was any kind of resolution revolving that. But I do agree. It's just like you be out here like me. I already know that you got to take whatever Ryan Murphy and them come out with any of this real life stuff. Take it with a grain of salt. You can't believe any of this stuff. Like if I understand, if you want to make a horror series and you want to take inspiration from some of these real life serial killers and you want to embellish and kind of make it, some made up thing, then do that. But I know like a lot of people will go in thinking that what they're watching is the truth, what they're thinking that all of this is accurate. In fact, when I watch it because cinematically, visually, it looked good. I definitely thought that they did a phenomenal job with the filming and the direction and stuff. But if you want the real deal of the situation, you got to watch these shows on you got to watch documentaries because that's the only way you're going to get the reality of who Ed Gein was. So in a separate thread, one posted, "Why couldn't they stick to just the facts in this case? That is enough to be a great series. All the fake storylines just take away from the series, in my opinion." Another Reddit user branded the show much more historically inaccurate than I expected, saying they take way too many artistic liberties. I even Googled some of the stuff he supposedly did, and a lot of it never happened. The show invents characters like a romantic interest, suggests he influenced or consulted in other crimes, exaggerates his psychological state, and misrepresents his family and relationships. Anyone else find it tonally all over the place, like half thriller drama, half accidental comedy. I wanted to like this because the monster series was intriguing and I learned stuff about Dahmer and the Menendez brothers, but this just feels like modern Hollywood slop. Agreeing, another commented, "It was terrible in so many ways. Most of it was completely fictionalized and not all of what happened. It went on so many ridiculous tangents and jumped time back and forth for no apparent reason. And the end, comically bad. Please stop giving Ryan Murphy the green light to keep churning out Z grade horror porn." Um, so yeah, like I said at the end of the day, take it with a grain of salt. Y'all know what it is when it comes to uh Ryan Murphy and whenever he takes on these type of stories. Y'all know what it is when it comes to him and all that. And I always say, like, um, in the future, I just feel like what we need to do in regard to this is like, yeah, if you watch any more of these videos, because he's about to do one on Lizzie Borden. That's the next one that he's currently working on. And when that comes out, we'll be here doing the same conversation about the same thing and the same situation. Now, I will say this: I will give it up to Charlie Hunnam, and I will give it up to Laurie Metcalf because I thought they did a phenomenal job as Ed Gein and his mother. And I definitely love the idea. You know, it was another one that I was wondering about as well. I want to know if um I want to know about the stuff with Anthony Perkins. Because remember, there was also sequence. I almost forgot to bring that up. Like with the when they were talking about the stuff with Psycho, and there was a whole storyline about Tony Perkins, who was a closeted homosexual, even though he has children. His son is a filmmaker, made Long Legs, a bunch of other movies. But this was like the big breakout role of his career. And um there was different metaphors I noticed when they were talking about in regards of like the monster. So the monster being homosexuality, the fact that he was in the closet, it was, either his career or the other. And I was wondering, what other actor, because the person that when in the beginning when he was having sex with the male that was in the film, was that supposed to be Tab Hunter? Because I don't know if they mentioned a name. He kind of looked like him. He looked like Tab Hunter in that scene. But seeing like the where it was about the monster and the secrets that you hide in, why he was relatable and playing this part, and then you saw like the scenes of Alfred Hitchcock being a peeping tom looking through the hole, which of course you see was the inspiration for when uh Norman Bates was peeping in on Marion Crane when she was in her room or whatever the case. When he gives her that special room that he puts the people in that he's infantilized by. So there was a lot of that was going on. So it was a lot to break down. And then of course you see with the mask with the bullet in the head and how he made it was given. I don't know why I thought that was Michael Myers at one point. But yeah, so we already know, like, when it comes down to it, how you need to just take on dealing with any kind of Ryan Murphy production is basically with a grain of salt. You can't take it as fact. A lot of it is embellished. A lot of it is BS. A lot of it is just he pulls stuff out of his ass or takes them other places and people be side on it. And we have these same arguments every time he puts out a program. And so that's why I said at the end of the day, once you're done watching this thing and get it out of your system and watch it for what it is, watch the documentaries right after that. So that way, if you want to know the real stuff that went on with these serial killers, you get the real tea for the real people who had the real facts. So I say all this to say, what do you guys think of this story? Did you see Monster, the Ed Gein story? And what were your overall thoughts? Did you like it? Did you not like it? I know it got massacred on Rotten Tomatoes. It got low numbers, but Rotten Tomatoes, schmatos, whatever. I mean, people like what they like at the end of the day. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.